Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of April 28th through May 4th of 2025. All right, so we just had a new moon yesterday on Sunday, and so it is a new beginning here to the lunar month, fresh new start, and just slowly going to be building momentum this week as we go through the week. Now, there's no major aspects outside of Venus going over Neptune, which is actually the third of what has been a series of conjunctions since February 1st. And so nothing new here, but really wrapping things up in many ways in regards to that spiritual, inward, watery, etheric energy of Pisces that we've had so strongly emphasized the prior month. So the prior month, if you recall, we had Mercury retrograde here, Venus was retrograde here. In this case, Venus has already passed over Neptune, but we'll be doing it for the last time here on Friday for this cycle. So this can be, in many ways, a wrapping up, a completion of a lot of the energies that perhaps we've learned the past couple months in regards to having more of that spiritual approach to life, doing things that are more soul connected, and just having a little more receptivity in our life. And with Venus, can deal specifically with our relationships, how we're relating with others, and also just fundamentally what we value, probably seeing more of the value and enjoyments of this watery, receptive sort of energy here. So then the week closes off with Pluto going retrograde for his 6 months, as he does every year. So probably not felt very personally, but starting around Sunday and for the next 6 months, really good to perhaps rework some things in regards to healing, deep diving, research, anything that's about bringing things to the surface is always good to kind of revisit, mull over, kind of go back and redo during the retrograde. But many of us could still notice a shift of perhaps being pulled into that deeper world as Mercury goes station on Sunday. And also on Sunday, we'll be in the first quarter moon. So that's very likely where we'll start to take more of the actions of this lunar cycle. It'll be much more conducive for action, much more about manifestation in regards to the seeds that have been planted since Sunday and probably early this week as well. All right, so let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here is the sky for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, April 28th. And as you can see here, we are using the visible sky on this channel, which is very different from mainstream astrology. Unfortunately, you won't see anything like this in mainstream because they don't use the visible sky. And so the sign placements will be different. For example, if you're wondering why I'm saying the sun is in Aries instead of, say, Taurus, definitely check out that link down below for more information. All right, so let's do a little bit of a recap here since we did just have the sun change sign last week. So yeah, we have the sun now in Aries. The focus is on taking initiative in our lives, more themes around proactivity, more themes around cultivating that sense of directness, assertiveness, action, and independence. You know, Aries is all about cultivating that relationship with ourselves and connecting to that gut, to that instinct, to that self-guided energy. So this is all part of the new beginning, of course, where we had the new moon just last Sunday, depending on when you're watching this. But coming into the week, we're very much still in the new moon energy. And so it's all about planting new seeds around this. And I would say early this week, just slowly building momentum, recognizing that it's still very early in the cycle and still just good to be experimenting and trying new things as we just get started. Now, we are, in many ways having now coming into this new lunar cycle, closing out much of the Piscean watery energy, where we've had the last couple months of energy very strongly. But we still have Mercury and Venus who are lagging behind the sun at the moment because of their recent retrogrades, who still need to pass over Pisces for the coming weeks. So it's definitely still, especially the early phase of this month, still definitely a blend between what is a new beginning with the more fiery, assertive energies of Aries, but still at least an equal proportion, still working with that watery, soul-guided, etheric energy of Pisces. So that's where Mercury is, the planet of our minds and communications in Pisces, where he's been for a long time now. So still good to be thinking and communicating in ways that are receptive, right? Soul-guided, maybe compassionate, understanding, and working with the unconscious world, working with our own unconscious or the spiritual world, maybe thinking about it, communicating and sharing it. It's actually very constructive for this kinds of things, and even spiritual activities as well, since Mercury rules our day-to-day lives. And so anything on that practical realm involving that spiritual energy is really fantastic. Venus here, of course, like I was saying, and passing over Neptune this week, really about seeing the value of this receptive energy and connecting to our relationships in that way, which we'll talk a little more about for the aspect on Friday, excuse me. So Mars is still in Cancer. That's water energy as well. And Mars is the ruler of Aries. So when we are talking about that self-assertion and proactivity that this whole new month is giving us, we see that it's happening through Cancer. So it's happening through the protective qualities of Cancer, through creating a safe and secure environment for ourselves and others. And so as it has been, but especially now in this new lunar month with the Aries new moon, it's very good to be, yes, asserting ourselves, being proactive in a way that's really connected to who and what is important to us emotionally, and perhaps accessing that protector energy that Mars in Cancer is really about. And that's, again, for ourselves and those close to us. So really good for that, even caring, nurturing energy, even connecting more with our emotions, our feelings, the past, our roots, our personal life, our personal relationships, our family or our tribe. These are all great things to be active with now in this new lunar cycle. All right, so that is where we are both coming into the week, and what I would really just give as a synopsis of the week as a whole, because as you can see here, there's not a whole lot of other aspects going on. In fact, we pretty much just covered them there. But breaking it down one day at a time here, starting with Monday, the moon will be finishing that new moon in Aries. The moon will be in Aries the first half of the day. Once we do get to the second half of Monday, and for all day Tuesday and Wednesday, the moon will be in Taurus. And so that's likely to ground things a little bit. A good early part of the week here for cultivating both our inner and outer resources. Taurus, the bull, is about taking things one step at a time, mustering up that inner strength, inner value, natural talents, and externalizing that, such as through maybe cultivating some of the earth or resources. Usually a good time for connecting to nature, connecting more with our senses, and having more of that sensual or grounded or steady, stopping to smell the roses sort of life. Okay, and the moon is well placed here, so usually, generally, some grounded themes, let's say. Now, as we do get into the new Gregorian month here of April, and we do get into, what is Thursday there on the 1st, of May, as we get into May, on the 1st of May here on Thursday, the moon will shift into Gemini. And so that's going to be a couple days, both Thursday and Friday, in kind of that Mercury practical energy we're talking about. So even though it is Mercury in Pisces still, and it's still very etheric, it is a great couple days, Thursday and Friday, for a bit of that practical energy. So thinking, communication, learning, being a bit inquisitive, a bit interested, maybe a little bit of social energy, this kind of to and fro, synergistic and practical energy of life is absolutely fantastic those couple days, and we'll probably notice a bit of a theme around those things. Now, when we do get to that Friday time, we will have Venus over Neptune. Again, the last contact with this, which started back on February 1st when Venus first passed over Neptune, and then the second time with her retrograde on March 27th. You could reflect on these dates, maybe ask yourself what's been going on since February 1st, and that would include also late January in that, since we had a lot of that Pisces energy anyways with Mercury and stuff. But in this case, new beginnings really solidifying in regards to this receptivity, right? So Venus over Neptune specifically has been showing us the value of connecting with our soul, the value of connecting to a more soul-guided approach to life. Maybe even connecting with, more of the peaceful and flowing and present and, intuitive and spiritual energies of life. So Venus helps us see the value of things, the beauty of things, what we want to attract to us in many ways and cultivate. And if you notice any new beginnings specifically around this, when it comes to either what you're enjoying or could be enjoying, your values and your relationships since February 1st in this context, this could be really the solidification of that. And really generally anything in this realm that maybe did start late January, early February, we could expect to solidify now around this week. So, but here, all in all, just a good time to, again, wrap this up, complete this energy, as this will be the last Passover of Neptune with all the fast movers now for this solar year. And so anything that's, again, more about completing our lives, completing things in our life to wrap up, to tie up any loose ends regarding that more soul-guided life, the mental health, the spiritual health, healthy coping mechanisms, seeing, again, the beauty and value of going with the flow in healthy ways and, having good mental health and spiritual health and good coping mechanisms and all this. And again, connecting in our relationships in a way that's still boundaried. We want to make sure everything's boundaried with Pisces, but with boundaries, compassionate, understanding, accepting, and maybe about our relationship life as a whole. Just accepting about our relationship life as a whole is fantastic too. Okay, this can even bring in some creative energy though. So again, intuitive energy. And so these are all things we can work with on Friday. All right, and then as we do get to that weekend here, again, we'll be in the first quarter moon on Sunday. That does really make it the action-oriented phase of the lunar cycle. This is likely, by the time we get to Sunday, we should all be very clear in terms of what these new beginnings are about from the previous week, and very clear on what actions we need to take, and really doing that. But again, starting to notice things materializing and becoming manifest probably Sunday going into next week. As we do approach that Sunday, the moon will be in Cancer, both Saturday and Sunday. And so that's going to be a weekend that's good to, again, activate what we were talking about that protective side. Okay, so I mean, it's all good for that the whole week, but Saturday, Sunday specifically around creating that safe and secure environment for ourselves and others. And like I said, Pluto is going retrograde there as well. We don't usually feel this very personally, but there could be a shift depending on how active Pluto is in your natal chart or over your natal chart. And this can be definitely a shift here in regards to that deeper energy. So Pluto is the ruler of the underworld, the ruler of our unconscious, the ruler of what needs to be let go, more non-attachment. And really all of this kind of clearing out the garbage in order to connect more to our true self. And by garbage, I mean fears, I mean inhibitions, I mean insecurities, patterns, unhealthy patterns, things like this. Pluto shows us where we might be operating from the surface of the ego, or the ego itself, which again is not that close to the true self. And so as we do a sort of ego death, as we strip away the ego a little bit, we can become closer to that true self, and then our selves become, including the ego, become much more empowered. And so Pluto helps us do that. But with the retrograde, it's likely going to be 6 months of, again, going inward to do that, going inward to, face fears, reconsider the deeper aspects of our lives, reconsider really what we really do want at the end of the day. If we were on our deathbed, so to speak, what really matters to us most in life, and all this. And then as a result, yes, feeling more healed, feeling more empowered, and maybe some things starting to help us facilitate that process. Now, I will say, if Pluto's been very strong for you this past 6 months, these sort of themes being emphasized, the retrogrades can actually put that stuff on the back burner. So what we're really seeing with the retrograde is more of an internalized process, more of a revisiting process, not so much of a strong emphasis of it that we tend to feel when we're implementing it, when the planets direct in this case. All right, everyone, and then very late Sunday with the moon in Leo, so that could be good into next week for a little bit of self-expression. All right, so that's the week in a nutshell. Just put very simply, and it is a very simple week astrologically. We're coming off of a new moon. It's the subtle new energies of the new lunar cycle. It's supposed to be a time of planting seeds. On one level, seeing what life is guiding us to do, and on another level, perhaps starting to set intentions. But it's all still very early, and so it's more about exploring and figuring things out more than anything else. As we start to get into the later part of the week, Venus will pass over Neptune, perhaps completing things since around February 1st in the context of our enjoyments, our values, and our relationships. Again, perhaps being a little more receptive with all that Pisces energy. And over the weekend, especially on Sunday, though, we get to that first quarter, which is the action phase of the cycle. We start to notice things manifesting from earlier in the week, and it's just good to challenge ourselves with that action. Perhaps some of us might notice the Pluto retrograde, which is starting to internalize some of that deeper energy. All right, so everyone have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for the live stream. We go live every Sunday here at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Time of the Americas. You can find the link down below in the YouTube channel, or if you're part of MTZ Insiders, you'll find it on there as well. Hope to see you all there. We can discuss all of this in more detail about the week, and of course, any questions you have, and to connect with the community and see how everyone else is experiencing these energies as well. So have a great week, and hope to see you at the live stream. Take care. Bye-bye.